Have you ever wondered who truly shapes the way entire societies think, react, and even dream? A name rarely spoken outside certain circles holds that secret. Tavistock. Born in London during the shadows of World War I, it was presented as a psychological institute created to heal soldiers broken by the trauma of battle. But behind the veil of therapy, whispers say another mission was already in motion. Tavistock was not just studying trauma, it was studying control. How to bend a mind, how to fracture and rebuild it, and more disturbingly, how to replicate this process on a mass scale. What began in the silence of clinical rooms soon extended into classrooms, newspapers, even radio waves. Have you noticed how certain symbols repeat themselves in culture? Or how a sudden change in music, film, or language seems to arrive all at once, as if orchestrated? Researchers linked to Tavistock explored rituals, hidden technology, and psychological warfare. Their findings would later echo in projects like MK Ultra, and in the hidden influence of secret societies across history. The patterns are chilling. The same symbols that appear in ancient occult practices are mirrored in modern entertainment and politics. Coincidence? Or design? In this video, we'll journey through the doors of Tavistock, uncovering the manipulations that remain hidden in plain sight. From the propaganda of wars to the invisible programming of today, the trail is there for those who dare to see. What you'll discover may surprise you, and may even change how you view the world around you. So before we continue, let me ask you, have you ever felt your choices weren't entirely yours? Write in the comments, "I see the hidden signs." And don't forget to subscribe, because what comes next will take us even deeper into the labyrinth of mass manipulation, where the real story begins. The story of Tavistock begins quietly, in rooms where soldiers broken by war sat in silence, eyes lost, minds fractured. Officially, the mission was noble: to heal trauma, to rebuild men shattered by conflict. Yet behind those walls, another layer of intention grew, one less about healing, and more about understanding how the mind itself could be shaped, bent, and redesigned. Powerful names stood behind it, familiar ones whispered in every tale. Of influence, the Rockefeller Foundation, banking dynasties, networks tied to secret societies. Their money fueled the research, but what exactly were they buying? Imagine psychologists studying not only fear and pain, but also the precise triggers that could control human behavior. Experiments tested isolation, sensory deprivation, staged rituals meant to break identity. If you remove a man's sense of self, if you erase his memory with shock, with repetition, with carefully chosen symbols, what remains? A blank slate. And on that slate, new beliefs, new behaviors could be written. This was not just medicine, it was programming. What Tavistock uncovered did not remain locked in files. These methods spilled into projects like MK Ultra, where the CIA pushed boundaries with drugs, hypnosis, and occult rituals disguised as science. But the truth is, Tavistock had already opened the door. They realized that control of the individual mind was only the first step. The true goal was far larger: mass manipulation. And that required not just experiments in clinics, but experiments in culture itself. Step by step, the research moved outward, into schools, newspapers, the growing power of radio. Headlines were crafted not only to inform, but to provoke emotion, to steer public reaction. Songs were written with rhythms and phrases that bypassed logic and planted themselves in the subconscious. Films became more than entertainment. They became delivery systems for hidden symbols, ancient codes, patterns of psychological influence, repeated until they felt natural, unquestionable. Have you ever wondered why certain images appear everywhere? Triangles, eyes, serpents, flames. These are not random decorations. They are signals. They are reminders of forbidden knowledge passed through centuries of secret societies, now woven into the background of modern life. And the effect on society was subtle, yet profound. Movements that looked spontaneous, sudden cultural, shifts that seemed organic, were often guided by invisible hands. The anger of crowds, the worship of icons, the rise of trends. Each could be nudged with the right symbols, the right stories, the right rituals repeated in plain sight. It's not about forcing obedience. It's about creating the illusion of choice while guiding the outcome all along. That is the genius of mind control. You believe you are free, yet every step is already mapped. Pause for a moment. Have you ever felt it? That your thoughts, your reactions, may not be entirely yours? That the shadows of hidden power whisper from the background, shaping what you consume, what you fear, what you desire? If you recognize this pattern, you are beginning the awakening. And if you agree, write in the comments, "I will not be controlled." But Tavistock's influence didn't stop with psychology, or media, or even the flow of culture. These experiments reached deeper, into the very structure of politics, war, and global movements. Because once you can sway individuals, and then societies, what remains but to steer entire nations? And that's where the story turns even darker. The deeper you look, the clearer it becomes. Tavistock's true power was never limited to medical studies or clinical trials. Its greatest weapon was culture. Films that entertained millions, radio broadcasts that seemed harmless, songs that repeated endlessly on the airwaves, all carried traces of something more. Hidden symbols whispered from the background, patterns that resonated not only with the conscious mind, but with the subconscious. A triangle flashed for a moment, an eye drawn into the scenery, lyrics that hinted at forbidden knowledge cloaked in metaphor. These details seemed accidental, artistic choices perhaps, but repetition made them familiar, and familiarity made them powerful. Imagine sitting in a dark theater. The story unfolds, emotions swell, and your guard lowers. At that exact moment, a symbol appears, a shape, a gesture, a ritual disguised as performance. You don't question it, you feel it. That is the subtle genius of mind control, programming the emotional core so the rational mind never resists. The same technique echoed in television shows, where archetypes and patterns shaped family life, social behavior, even political loyalties. Generations raised on these signals began to internalize them as natural truths, never realizing they were designed to be there. And when music carried the message, the effect was even more profound. Rhythm bypasses logic, reaching directly into the body, into movement, into trance. Certain beats repeated like ancient codes, reviving rituals that once belonged to secret societies and occult ceremonies. Lyrics whispered of darkness, of shadows, of power unseen. To most, it was just a catchy song. But to those who watched closely, the manipulation was undeniable. Have you ever noticed how entire cultural shifts can be traced back to a single artist, a single performance, even a single televised moment? Coincidences pile up until they no longer feel like coincidences at all. Tavistock researchers knew the human mind craved symbols. From the earliest civilizations, hidden symbols marked temples, coins, and banners. Those same images returned, embedded in entertainment and politics alike, shaping the collective without the crowd ever suspecting. An eye above a pyramid, flames consuming and renewing, serpents coiled into infinity. These were not random designs. They were chosen for their resonance with the unconscious, for their ability to stir memory and myth. Ancient rituals dressed as modern art, waiting for the subconscious to respond. And perhaps the most disturbing revelation is that this influence wasn't just about distraction or entertainment. It was about steering society. If people can be guided through emotion, through carefully placed hidden symbols, then entire generations can be molded. Movements that appeared organic, rebellions that seemed spontaneous, revolutions that looked like the will of the people, many carried the fingerprints of psychological influence, planted long before the spark was lit. This is not freedom. It is orchestration hidden in plain sight. Stop for a moment. Do you feel it? The sudden awareness that maybe your thoughts, your preferences, your choices were seeded long before you claimed them as your own? If you sense this, you are not alone. Write in the comments, "I see the signs." Because awakening begins with recognition. And recognition is the first step away from control. But that's only the surface. Because once entertainment and culture are compromised, the next question emerges. Who benefits? Who pulls the strings from behind the curtain, turning art into ritual and ritual into power? The trail doesn't end in theaters or concert halls. It leads straight into the halls of politics and the shaping of nations. And that's where the shadows grow even darker. Politics has always been a theater. But what if the script itself was written far from the halls of power? Tavistock's influence stretched beyond culture, beyond entertainment, into the very fabric of governance. Many analysts suggest that leaders, presidents, prime ministers, and their advisors were not only briefed by the Institute's theories, but trained in its methods. They learned how to craft speeches that bypass reason and strike directly at emotion, how to shape propaganda that fuels wars, how to bend the collective will without force. This is not democracy as we imagine it. It is psychological influence masquerading as choice. Consider the wars of the 20th century. Beyond bombs and tanks, the battlefield was the human mind. Posters that stirred rage, radio broadcasts that created fear, carefully orchestrated speeches that rallied millions into conflict. These were not random strokes of genius. They were engineered strategies, born in Tavistock's rooms of research. Manipulation became science. Collective emotions, fear, pride, hatred, were treated like levers, pulled and pushed until entire nations marched in lockstep. The unseen architects knew that once you control perception, you control action. Think of the Cold War. The fear of an invisible enemy was enough to justify endless military buildup, surveillance, and cultural conformity. Yet behind the curtain, this fear was cultivated, sharpened, and sustained. Tavistock's insights showed how shadows could be more powerful than armies. A dark agenda fed on uncertainty, on paranoia, on the subtle shaping of public opinion until truth itself blurred. What we call history may have been a carefully maintained illusion. And when revolutions erupted, when youth movements challenged the old order, did they truly rise from the streets or from scripts written long before? The 1960s, often hailed as an age of awakening, bear strange marks. Cultural icons emerged, seemingly overnight, guiding millions into new ways of thinking, new ways of rebelling. But rebellion without direction is only chaos, and chaos can be managed, redirected, reabsorbed into the system. Many now question whether these revolutions were authentic, or if they were subtle experiments, testing how far mass programming could bend human behavior. If entertainment was the first layer of control, politics was the second, harder, deeper, more dangerous. Leaders trained in persuasion learned to perform rituals of power in public view. The gestures, the cadence, the symbols behind podiums and flags, all echoing ancient codes once reserved for secret societies. The handshake, the oath, the carefully staged ceremonies. Occult rituals hidden in plain sight, stripped of their sacred context, but still resonating with subconscious force. We see a politician's smile, a crowd's applause. What we do not see are the invisible strings, the forbidden knowledge guiding the play from the shadows. Tavistock's genius lay not only in shaping leaders, but in shaping the masses to receive them. A population conditioned by media, by culture, by repeated exposure to hidden symbols, becomes ready to accept whatever figure appears on stage. That figure need not be wise, nor just, only crafted to reflect the desires that have already been planted. The people believe they are choosing, but they are only confirming what has been designed. Free will is simulated, but the outcome is scripted. And once again, the illusion becomes stronger than truth. Stop and ask yourself, if nations rise and fall, if wars ignite and revolutions flare, yet the patterns repeat century after century, who truly governs? Are governments in control? Or are they themselves puppets in a theater where the real authors remain unseen? The answer may not lie in parliaments or congresses, but in the hidden corridors of influence, where psychology, power, and secrecy merge. And if that is true, then the next question is even darker. Who are the real masters of the stage? Tavistock never stood alone. Its fingerprints overlap with the patterns of other forces that have moved quietly through history. Secret societies whose very names carry weight in whispers. Illuminati, Freemasonry, Skull and Bones. Groups portrayed as myth or conspiracy, yet their influence threads through politics, finance, religion, and culture. When their symbols surface, they rarely appear by accident. They are woven into architecture, carved into monuments, hidden in corporate logos, staged in performances that millions consume without question. To the untrained eye, it's decoration. To the awakened, it's communication. A code, a ritual, repeated across time. Think of the eye set within a triangle, the all-seeing gaze found on currency, in films, in political insignia. Or the compass and square, tools of Freemasonry, etched into city plans, mirrored in corporate emblems. Or the skull, the bones, the oath-bound rituals of elites sworn to secrecy. These are not random images scattered through history. They are ancient codes revived for modern use, symbols with psychological influence that bypasses the mind and speaks directly to the subconscious. We recognize them without realizing it, and in that recognition lies their power. The unseen works best when we dismiss it as coincidence. Tavistock's role in this tapestry was not to invent the symbols, but to refine their use, to calculate their effect, to embed them within culture in ways that feel organic. If a film mirrors a Masonic initiation ritual, it's labeled art. If a pop performance echoes an occult ceremony, it's called entertainment. Yet the repetition is key. Hidden symbols are reinforced until they become normal, part of the collective imagination, until their original meaning is buried, and only the effect remains. The mind bends toward them without conscious resistance. This is mind control at its most elegant. The audience laughs, sings, dances, unaware that ritual is unfolding before their eyes. Consider the architecture of capital cities. Washington, D.C. designed with Masonic geometry, London with obelisks, aligned to ancient lines, Rome crowned with symbols of empire and church fused together. Why do these motifs persist? Because secret societies understood long ago that space itself can be a ritual. To walk within a city aligned by ancient codes is to participate unknowingly in ceremony. Tavistock only perfected the psychological layer, how these environments could influence mood, thought, loyalty, obedience. We live surrounded by symbols we never stop to question. And behind these symbols, rituals of power continue. Closed rooms where oaths are sworn in shadow, where forbidden knowledge is passed between initiates. What begins in secrecy eventually bleeds into policy, into culture, into the direction of nations. The handshake of politicians, the placement of monuments, the repetition of numbers and dates. Each can signal allegiance, each can serve as ritual. We see only the performance, not the hidden power choreographing it. It is easy to dismiss, easier still to mock, yet these patterns persist with a precision that coincidence cannot explain. Ask yourself, if these groups are myths, why do their symbols dominate our world? Why do they reappear in moments of crisis, in ceremonies of state, in the architecture of authority? What game is being played when leaders invoke ancient imagery before the eyes of millions, then insist it means nothing? Perhaps the greatest manipulation of all is convincing the masses that nothing is happening, that the unseen holds no sway. Yet once you see the signs, you cannot unsee them. Recognition is the beginning of awakening. Write in the comments, "I will not be controlled." Let it be a declaration, a fracture in the programming, a reminder that you are watching with eyes open. Because acknowledgement is resistance, and resistance begins with truth. But what does it mean for us? For ordinary people living under the glow of these hidden symbols, walking through cities built as rituals, consuming media laced with codes? Have we already surrendered to this silent network of control without knowing? Or is there still a way to step outside the game, to reclaim the self from the web of manipulation? The answer lies in the shadows where Tavistock and its allies converge, and where the real question emerges. If we are the audience, who then is truly directing the play? Even today, the name Tavistock drifts in silence, absent from headlines, ignored in public debates, yet its shadow lingers over the very structure of our thoughts. Few recognize it, but its methods live on, subtle currents shaping beliefs, fears, desires. The greatest trick is not brute force, not open control, but the quiet whisper that moves unseen. Mind control thrives when the victim never suspects they are a target. That is the art perfected in the hidden corridors of power. A film flickers across the screen, and you laugh or cry on cue. A song repeats its rhythm until it lodges itself in your memory. A headline sparks outrage, fear, hope, emotions calibrated, tested and released with precision. You feel the reaction as natural, yet perhaps it was planted long before. Tavistock's work was not just theory. It became practice. Practice became habit. And habit became the foundation of culture itself. Secret societies amplified this current, weaving hidden symbols and occult rituals into the world stage. The all-seeing eye, the serpent, the eternal flame, symbols older than nations, carried forward through forbidden knowledge, repeated until they lost their strangeness and gained familiarity. And once they were familiar, they were powerful. People accept what they see often enough, even when it carries a dark agenda beneath its surface. The manipulation is delicate, almost invisible. A suggestion framed as choice. A narrative repeated until it becomes truth. Shadows moving through politics, through art, through media, all shaping the collective without a single command spoken aloud. This is psychological influence at its purest, conspiracies enacted not in secret chambers alone, but in broad daylight, disguised as entertainment, as progress, as news. And now comes the uncomfortable question. When you choose, when you feel, when you believe, are you truly the author of your own thoughts? Or are you reading from a script already written, lines rehearsed by generations before you? Perhaps that is the final enigma Tavistock left behind. A world where freedom itself may be part of the illusion. What would you do if the truth was this? That many of your choices were never really yours? If you followed this path until now, you already know. Not everything we see is what it seems. Hidden symbols, forbidden knowledge, the unseen patterns of mind control. They surround us quietly, woven into the culture we consume, into the decisions we believe are ours. And if these revelations resonated with you, if you felt the shadows shift just a little, then this is only the beginning of a greater awakening. To keep uncovering these truths, join this circle of seekers by subscribing. Each step forward brings new fragments of the puzzle. deeper layers of what secret societies and occult rituals have concealed for centuries. Your presence here matters, because awareness spreads like fire once it's lit. Leave your mark below, a sign that you reached the end of this journey with open eyes. Write in the comments, "I see the hidden truth." Let it stand as both declaration and reminder that you will not be controlled, that you are awake to the unseen currents. And if this message stirred something within you, let your voice be felt with a simple like. It strengthens the connection, a quiet nod that you too have glimpsed what lies beyond the surface. This journey doesn't end here. The next revelation waits, another layer of the enigma ready to be peeled away. Follow the thread, because every truth uncovered opens the door to another mystery still concealed.